I mean, traditionally, science fairs are a father-son thing.
Well, scientifically, traditions are an idiot thing.
Hello, Crafty Andy, and these are my thoughts. Traditions are a dumb thing. No, I'm not talking about the tradition like every week of getting together and playing D&D, watching movies, or the nights you and Bob from the office compete and seeing who can take the biggest bad dragon toy. I'm talking about traditions that are considered important. The ones placed on pedestals as if they are the foundation of Western civilization itself. That to break them is to somehow break America and its ability to govern and allow people to lead more fulfilling lives than the previous generations overall.
Play music, read books, write poetry, create art, decorate, make food, do whatever you want, but would you please just be the mother of my children? I'll pay for everything. Just run the vacuum once a week. If you wouldn't mind making dinner too, that'd be epic. Is that okay? Would you mind letting me cherish you for the rest of your life? Would that be too much to ask? Take a break from the spreadsheets, maybe, I don't know, raise the next generation? No, stop oppressing me!
Whenever people try to talk as if traditions are sacred, be it an action or value, even going so far as to say it's part of their identity as a human being, I immediately think of the short story The Lottery. A small village gathers every year to randomly select a person to be stoned to death by lottery in order to ensure a good harvest, or rather the village's well-being.
We've prospered. Life has been kind. God has rewarded us.
Correlation is not causation.
As an example of mob mentality, following an idea blindly, the power of superstitious and religious mindsets, leading good people to commit evil acts. In the story, it gets to the point where a lot of the townsfolk don't even know why they do the lottery. They just do it because it's been done previous years for generations. Tradition is just an act or activity that has been done at least one generation before you. They can be fun and festive, but ultimately they are not sacred or important in any sense of the word. How about the traditional value of live and let live, honesty and empathy?
I leave you with my revised list of the 2 commandments. Thou shalt always be honest and faithful to the provider of thy nookie. And thou shalt try real hard not to kill anyone.
Nah, we need to keep the tradition of sexual repression, shaming promiscuous women, and stigmatizing anything outside of traditional relations.
Premarital sex is a sin, and those who participate in it are worshipers of the devil.
Let's keep the tradition of for-profit medicine, because you have the right to go to work and get ass fucked by a drunken forklift driver, but don't have the right to paid medical attention until you drain your savings and pay off that $10,000 deductible, only to find out it covers 20% of the bill and not any rehabilitation. Well, there is that $50,000 life insurance policy, though. Might pay off having another accident finish the job. But let's talk about traditional social pressures and practices of monogamy, straight, that sort of thing. Where would I have been if I gave into social pressures and stuck with the traditional value system when it comes to how I conduct my life? The more thought I put into this, the more I realize that every action I have taken since I learned to accept myself is in defiance of the normative majority in terms of traditions, and I'm far better living by my own values than catering to someone else's. Without making this a book, I went from rejecting my bisexual, furry, hating self to accepting myself and becoming more productive in my passions. From believing in God without question and fearing death to seeing all of that fall apart from questions. It's amazing how quickly a rational person can become an atheist just by reading the Bible.
I mean, you can read The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins. You can read God is Not Great by Hitchens. But the Bible itself will turn you atheist faster than anything.
As a moral guide, it utterly fails, because much of the original Hebrew scriptures were written by ignorant and bigoted savages who condoned and promoted animal cruelty, incest, slavery, abuse of slaves, spousal abuse, child molestation, abortion, pillage, murder, cannibalism, genocide, and prejudice against race, nationality, religion, sex, and sexual orientation. Why? To justify their own inhumanity by claiming to do the will of God.
Thanks, Aaron Raw. From focusing on women to being in a multi-partner relationship to dating men and then marrying one only to later include a second. Breaking it all down, I am a epitome of non-traditional. It's hilarious to think all of us in this relationship can go through life paying taxes, working, participate in our wonderful capitalist society and not murder or rape anybody, but still be labeled as a destroyer of Western civilization. As of now, there are talks of going after my legal marriage and dissolving it in the Supreme Court. Isn't that wonderful? You just want to grill, but you can't grill because the government might just divorce you one day.
Understand what that would mean for thousands, if not millions of gay people across the country. That means if they get their health care through their spouse, they lose it like that. If they're getting Social Security benefits from their spouse who recently passed away, they lose it like that. There are more than 1,000 federal benefits that go to same-sex couples. I mean, the devastation would be horrible. Thousands of lives would be ruined.
100 Polish local governments have pledged to protect traditional family values. So that's a third of Poland where any promotion of LGBT equality is not allowed.
But damn our happiness. We need to pursue and enforce the status quo. We need to promote a society of normalcy among the people and create a distraction so we can further carve up what little land isn't owned by corporate billionaires who are looking to make some more fracking zones and golf courses.
Whoa, Jesus Christ. That's the best I've done.
You gotta participate in that yearly lottery and select a person to sacrifice or the world we know will surely fall apart. There are plenty of active, vocal people who have gotten very angry over the fact that people like me have been given more equal footing in our society. That the idea of queers fighting for their rights is a rewrite of history to label people of the past as bigoted, and it has led to a slippery slope of the acceptance of trans and teaching kids about gender identity, leading to the idea that it's a social construct like race, as if it's a fucking bad thing. How many people stayed the course and married out of obligation or convenience? How many had kids out of social obligation? How many terrible couples stay together and live begrudgingly as roommates in order to portray a false positive image to their neighbors and children? At this point, I can only imagine what kind of miserable creature I'd be if I stayed in my course, doing the bare minimum in order to ensure my place, working an engineering job I had no interest in pursuing because the arts are just too competitive, getting a girlfriend and keeping some of my taste a secret as I just sort of go along for the ride, tying ourselves down by having kids, giving up my passions because of practicality. I'll never get over how much fucking time and energy was wasted fighting with myself. And what about useless traditions that people participate in simply because others did before them without question or despite personal objections they may have? Fine, marriage has to stay, mainly because of the protections and tax benefits it offers. There's not going to be any changes there. That alone is why everyone should be included. But why is this tradition only including one couple? Why not a threesome, a foursome, or a quadsome? Is it really that hard to figure out a polyamorous relation? No, of course not. The pushback would be from religious-based reasoning and other traditionalists who still think somehow marriage is sacred or some shit. Why is it so important to keep marriage between only two people or the opposite sex? As long as it involves consenting adults, who is anyone to say how a family should form or conduct themselves? Speaking of marriage, what's with the tradition of spending hundreds to thousands of dollars on engagement rings and wedding rings and ceremonies? How about a down payment on a house instead, or just skip the ceremony and go on vacation, then have a party at a park instead? I don't get this expenditure of elaborate weddings that have thrown a lot of couples into debt just as they start. What's the social pressure for this? Or taking the last name, what's the magic behind that? Is it not true love or a real marriage unless I take someone's last name or force mine onto someone else's? Sounds like a lot of hassle to me, having to go and get your name updated in your bills, licenses, insurances, registrations, and bathhouse memberships. But these are just my thoughts. Speaking of thoughts, I did get some comments and some videos. So let's take a look at that. On the Dunworth reactionary channels, Mr. H Reviews says dumb stuff. Yep, 100 times yep. I used to watch that guy, but he hardly even denies that his channel is now just a right-wing pandering nonsense tube aimed at making petty cash by milking anti-liberal, anti-science, and anti-equality rhetoric with the tone of a strappy 13-year-old. He also loses his rag all the time and actually trolls and throws abuse in his own comment section. I find that interesting because it's amusing to oneself and a circle of friends when you troll and treat your own audience like shit, but everyone else looking on the outside is just going to see you as an asshole, especially your fans, and eventually you'll wonder why your channel just stagnates and never grows any bigger than it already has. Now, recently I did get someone trying to convert me to Christianity during a stream, and he ended up talking to me on some of my videos here. Please seek professional help. I do not write this simply to be condescending. You clearly have some serious issues that stem from your childhood experience in school and sexual abuse. All the best. Again, seek professional help. Sexual abuse in your childhood is very serious and it can affect your self-image more than you realize. Well, that's all well and good, but you know what affects your self-image more is religion telling you that you're going to hell for just existing. And then you have to constantly fight with yourself, wondering if you're on the right path or not, fearing death every single day. I think that would affect your self-image a little more. It's amazing how much irony is in my life, including right now, that someone would even have the arrogance to assume that I have some self-image problem at this point in my life at the age of 34. You're about 24 years late on this. Might have helped back then, maybe. And I'm better now than I ever have been. So I'm not sure exactly what you're getting at here. Like, subscribe, and comment. I'll be sure to share it here. I do Twitch streams Monday through Thursday for art and video making on twitch.tv/CraftyAndyIGMTM. Fridays 5 p.m. for gaming and Sundays at 8 p.m. I do have an Art Pal store for prints if you're interested in that, as well as a Patreon if you want to support the show. The next major project is one I actually had people vote on Twitter and on YouTube here. So pay attention to my Twitter if you want to participate in future prospects. And that is Nightmare Before Christmas and Cyberpunk 2077. That's right, it's a crossover between the two. There's a whole slew of projects that I have on my wall here that I'm showing off right now. But, you know, I just wish I had more time to get them done. Patreon?